Hello, hello. Welcome back to Evolve with E. I am your host, E. Today we're going to talk about this phenomenon in psychology known as confirmation bias. Your brain can be actively working against you in ways that you don't even realize. And once you understand this and understand how it works, then you can start to work with it instead. So today we're going to talk about how beliefs form, what a limiting belief actually is, where they come from, and more importantly, how to find them and dismantle them. So let's dive in. What is confirmation bias? Confirmation bias is your brain's tendency to either seek out, interpret situations, or remember things in a way that confirms what it already believes, and to dismiss or ignore things that contradict that. So your brain isn't doing this to be difficult, it's a cognitive shortcut. We talked a little bit last week about how your brain likes to take the easiest path, the path of least resistance. And so processing every single piece of information that comes into your brain equally would be slow and kind of exhausting for your brain to process, right? So your brain takes the fast route. It wants to stick to an existing neural pathway. It wants to confirm that it already knows what's going on. And the problem is, when your beliefs are either limiting or harmful, your brain is still out here gathering information to support that and back that up. And so people rarely change their beliefs on complex issues, even when being presented with new evidence, because they evaluate contradictory evidence differently than evidence that supports what it is they already believe. So confirming evidence gets accepted easily. Differing evidence gets scrutinized, dismissed, or even outright ignored. Okay, so some real-world examples. Let's say you believe that you're bad at relationships. When you think about relationships, your brain will highlight every fight, every misunderstanding, every moment of disconnection. And without realizing it, you're filtering out the moments of love, of connection, repair, and growth within those relationships. Because when you think about relationships, you think about the bad stuff. You think about the things that support the idea that you're bad at relationships. Let's look at another example. Let's suppose that you believe that you're not smart enough. Your brain will notice every time you make a mistake, every gap that you have in some field of knowledge. Every time somebody else seems more capable, your brain will use that as fuel to prove to you over and over again that you are not smart enough. Your wins won't feel like real wins. It won't land the same because you're still holding on to, whether you know it or not, I am not smart enough. Third example, if you believe that you are unlovable, again, whether it's a conscious belief or a subconscious belief, but if you believe that you are unlovable, your brain will constantly be looking for validation that you are not lovable. Your brain will collect the evidence in every unanswered text, in every canceled plan, in every moment that somebody chooses something else over you. Your brain uses that as fuel, as moments of proof to continue validating that original belief. And this is not a character flaw. That's why I say it's not necessarily a conscious thing. It is neuroscience. It is your brain's way of reinforcing the beliefs that it already has. It is its way of reinforcing and continuing to choose the same neural pathway over and over again because the way of thinking offers the path of least resistance. So let me back up really quick and just explain in my own words what a belief is. The way that I see a belief is that you are presented with an idea, and then that idea is validated through proof. This proof might be facts, this proof might be situations, but the brain looks for things to support this idea. And then you get to decide, your brain gets to decide, if this is reality or not. And then if you accept that as reality, then that becomes a belief. You believe that this idea, because of this proof, and that is true, right? So let's talk about a limiting belief. A limiting belief is a belief that constrains you, a belief that keeps you from reaching your full potential, a belief that keeps you from taking risks or seeing what is possible in life, a belief that keeps you playing it small, playing it safe. And limiting beliefs are deeply ingrained thought patterns that can stem from either childhood situations, societal conditioning, and sometimes even cultural influences that most of the time we are not aware that we have taken on as beliefs of our own. So they can often sound like the original example, like, I am not smart enough, I'm bad at relationships, I'm unlovable, I don't deserve good things, people always leave me, I am too much, success isn't possible for people like me, or this one's if I rest, I'll fall behind. Tragic. Ugh. Tragically limiting beliefs. And here's where it gets really interesting, like neuroscience-wise. Limiting beliefs emerge when the brain's predictive system encodes repeated negative experiences as fixed forward models. So The brain minimizes prediction error rather than seeking the truth, which can lock these self-limiting patterns into your neural architecture that actively resist this contradictory evidence. So like English, your brain builds a model of reality based on your lived experiences. And when that model includes a limiting belief, your brain will literally resist evidence that contradicts it. So it is not looking for the truth, it is looking for confirmation. And our beliefs are encoded under emotional intensity. So the more emotion that is behind a belief, the stronger it is encoded in your brain. And emotions like shame or fear are incredibly potent because of the areas in your brain that they activate, like your amygdala, and because they encode so strongly in these foundational parts of your brain, that makes it really, really difficult for your brain to like update that way of thinking. It's like, this keeps me safe. Thinking this way keeps me safe. Because it formed these neural connections under the pretense of like shame or fear, it operates from, if I think and look for confirmation of this, this will keep me safe. Does that make sense? So basically, in English, the more painful the original experience that created this belief, the harder it is to shift out of it. Your nervous system encoded it so deeply because it felt so unsafe. It was borderline life-threatening to your nervous system that it locked this belief into place and is like, I must believe this to keep me safe. Because remember, your brain is wired for survival. Your brain is wired to keep you safe. Your brain is not wired for joy. Your brain is not optimizing for happiness. Your brain is optimizing for keeping you alive. So, it doesn't know that this core belief, this foundational limiting belief, keeps you unhappy. Your brain does not care that this belief makes you feel a certain way. So long as it feels like it is keeping you safe, it's good. Okay, so there's a related concept in psychology called a belief ceiling. And a belief ceiling is basically what it sounds like. It is the upper limit of what you feel like is possible for you. Not just what you think you can't do, but the absolute cap on what you think you're even allowed to have, allowed to be, allowed to become. And it can be much subtler than a limiting belief because it's not always, I can't do this. It's more like, this isn't possible for me. People like me don't get to do that. And so it's less limited to you and more like broad spectrum, like this isn't even possible type of a thing. And your belief ceiling can determine how high you're willing to reach, how far you're willing to push yourself before you start to either self-sabotage, shrink back, or convince yourself that, you know what, you didn't really want it that bad anyways, you know? And that confirmation bias will keep that ceiling firmly in place because your brain is constantly gathering evidence that that ceiling is real. Again, your brain wants you to be safe. Your brain wants to keep you safe. Your brain doesn't want you to be doing things that are new, that are novel, that force it out of its own comfort zone. And so when you come up against something like a limiting belief or a belief ceiling, it can feel world-shattering. Before we go into what to do when you come up against a limiting belief, let's talk about where they come from. Where do limiting beliefs come from? Let's go over some examples. So, they can come from childhood experiences. Let's say, growing up as a kid, you were always told things like, you are too much, you're too sensitive, you are too loud, you are not smart enough, you are not smart, you're not athletic enough. Things like that, that your brain took in and filed it as a fact. Somebody told me this, it is true. They can come from your environment around you, the culture you grew up in, the community you grew up in, the family that you grew up with. Let's say they had beliefs that you grew up hearing about what was possible for people like you, people who grew up with your upbringing, people who look like you, people who come from places that you come from. And you took them and absorbed them as reality without realizing it. Limiting beliefs can come from past experiences. Let's say you tried something once and it didn't work out, not the way you wanted it to. Let's say that you got hurt. It was a painful experience. Your brain generalized that into a rule about reality. Remember, the more painful an experience, the more potent of a belief that generates. So, let's say something happened and you got really fucking hurt. Like emotionally, you tried something, it didn't work, it fucking hurt that it didn't work out. Your brain will develop a belief about that going forward to keep you safe, to keep you from feeling that kind of pain again. Sometimes limiting beliefs can come from other people's fears, from other people's past experiences that they are projecting onto you. They love you. They want to protect you. They want to keep you safe. And so their brain is trying to share its rules of reality with you. I tried this didn't work, or I saw this happen and it didn't work. Let me tell this to you, that way you don't get hurt, that way you are safe. And it can come from a place of absolute love. Love and a desire to keep somebody else safe, not necessarily keep them happy. So limiting beliefs can honestly come from anywhere. Once you've been introduced to this idea, remember I said a belief starts from an idea being presented and then backed up with facts. Once you're presented with this idea from whichever circumstance it came from, your brain then starts to look for facts to back it up, this confirmation bias. Your brain will start collecting evidence every single day, in every single situation, that the belief is true, and it will continue to reinforce that neural pathway until it feels like an objective fact. Okay, so now we know where they can come from. They can come from anywhere. How do we find them? Better yet, how do we dismantle them? Well, I personally have a 3-step process that I'm going to share with you right now. Step 1, the intentional scavenger hunt. Most of the time, you will not passively stumble across a limiting belief. You have to go looking. And so you sit and you approach yourself with both honesty and curiosity. Not judgment. You are a scientist observing. You are collecting data. You are not a prosecutor building a case against yourself. You are going out on a scavenger hunt. You are looking to carve out intentional time to sit with yourself and ask, this is sometimes what they'll call shadow work if you're familiar. But you'll sit and ask, what do I believe about myself? This is where, for me, journaling it out is really helpful. Because God knows I'd struggle really hard to stay on one train of thought at the same time. So to have it all rattling around in my brain isn't as helpful as to be able to follow my stream of consciousness out loud through my hand. So literally get yourself a new journal, babe, and open it up to the first page, and you're going to write out my scavenger hunt, looking for limiting beliefs. And then, what do I believe about myself? What do I believe about love? What do I believe about money? What do I believe about success? What do I believe about what I deserve? And in this whole process, write whatever comes up. Like I said, we're collecting data. We're just observing. We are noticing, is it easy for me to write about what I believe about myself? Have I ever thought about this before? Is it easy for me to write about what I think love is? Do I even know what I think love is? Do I even know what success looks like to me? And you get to sit with yourself, to create this time and space, to allow all these different things to come up and actually look at it for maybe some of the first times. So in this process, notice what makes you flinch. What makes you a little uncomfy? Notice what feels immediately true without the evidence already. Notice which things are I could never, or that's not me, that's not possible for me. Those are the big ones. Those are the ones that we're going to put a star next to, because we're going to go deeper into that later, babe. You just really need to see what makes you feel super icky, because there's something there. If there's an ick, there's something there. There's a reason. So after you just get a baseline of this is what I believe about myself, about love, about success, about money, about what I deserve in life. Step 2 is poking at them a little bit more. We're going to look at each of those things that you believe about yourself. And we're going to ask, is this true? Another flavor of this that I like, is this universally true? Let's say that it's a belief that you have that's not necessarily about you, but about success or money or something like that, right? Is this universally true? So when you come up across a potential limiting belief or a belief ceiling, ask yourself, is this universally true always? The answer is almost always no. Not, is this true for me sometimes? Rather, is this true for every person in every situation always? Like I said, most of the time the answer is no, it's not true. And when the answer is no, that is your opening to go deeper. We're writing all this out, babe. Allow yourself the space, time to put the pen to paper. I like pens, pencil, do your thing. Put the pen to paper and write it out. Let yourself read it. Let yourself acknowledge it. Let yourself say it and sit with it, right? That brings me to my step 3. When you have your no, that's your chance to go deeper. And we go deeper with step 3, the 5 whys. So this is like an actual technique for root cause analysis that was developed by the founder of Toyota Industries in like the early 1900s. If you're familiar with operations and like manufacturing and like lean systems, this is a big thing for them. Toyota is like the golden child for that type of shit. They've got their shit handled. They have figured their shit out. So the 5 whys is just one of their things that like they've then since published as like, we do this to be who we are. So the 5 why method encourages digging deeper into system failures to uncover human system or procedural causes, not just the resulting surface symptoms. So by repeating why 5 times, the nature of the problem as well as its solution usually becomes clear. So to put a little bit of a visual to it, the problem happened here. So you ask, well, why did this problem happen here? Because of something that happened here. Well, why did this happen here? Well, because something happened here. Well, why did this happen here? Because this happened here. And why did this happen? It just fucking keeps going, and we keep going deeper and deeper into the why. Like I said, this is used in like manufacturing processes and procedures to get to the root of like why an issue happened later down like the manufacturing line or some shit like that. But I like to use it for limiting beliefs. When you identify one, ask why you believe it, and then ask why again and again, and you keep going until you hit the root. Okay, so an example. Let's say you have identified the limiting belief that you think that I am not capable of being consistent. Okay. Why? Because I always start things and I don't finish them. Okay. Why? Well, because I lose motivation when things get hard. Okay. Why? Well, honestly, I was never taught how to work through difficult situations, and when I'm stuck, I only really knew how to like perform under pressure. Okay. Why? Well, I mean, like the only time that I ever got praise was when I delivered results, not when I just kept showing up trying to work something out. I needed to have an output. Okay. Why? I only felt valuable and like my worth was tied to my output from like as long as I can remember. All right. 5 whys, and now we've got somewhere. You can see that the root has now boiled down to, I was taught that I'm only valuable when I perform. Rest and slow and steady progress feel unsafe. So you can see where being able to identify that root gives us something tangible to actually start working with. The root is where the work happens. It's not at the surface. When you try to do that surface level work and the thing that you're trying to hit is, I can't stay consistent, you try to throw all of these different systems and structures and use a planner and do the da-da-da at that last layer, at the actual symptom that's showing up. Whereas in reality, it's something much, much deeper. The person who's actually showing up, who feels like they're not able to be consistent, feels like they have to perform. They have to provide an output in order to feel like a valuable human being. When they're not able to provide an instant output because something is difficult and they need to actually take the time to work through this next step in the process, they don't have the tools available to them to be able to slowly work through something over time because they feel like it's not getting somewhere that matters, it's the actual physical output. So then that becomes a whole mental game where then they lose the motivation, they feel like, well, fuck it, it's not even worth it, and then they give up on something, and then they feel like they can't stay consistent because they never actually reached the end goal of something that they set out to do. Does this make sense? Once you're able to identify the root of these behaviors, you're able to actually start to change the foundation of how you're showing up and why it's going to make such a foundational difference to change what it is that's down there at that root, to address what is down there at the root. This process is not easy. It does take a level of self-awareness to create the space to sit with yourself and be honest with yourself. Why do I do that? Sometimes the answer is fucking icky. Sometimes the answer makes you super uncomfortable. And you have to sit with like the awareness of, oh, I do that. I think that. And this is why. Wow. There's a lot of emotion that comes with that too. And so the biggest tool, once you've identified the root belief that is driving the rest of these behaviors, you have to disprove that belief through action. Take action that is directly opposite to that core thought, that challenges that underlying belief. So if the belief is, I'm only valuable when I perform and have an output, you need to take action that is directly opposite to that. You need to actively choose rest, to choose a slow and steady process as opposed to a rushed, finite output. It's tricky, but going to that route and starting to take that opposite aligned action starts to force your brain to realize the new evidence. You start to force your brain to build a new neural pathway. You start giving your brain supporting evidence for the opposite of that foundational belief. And here's where it comes back to that confirmation bias. It takes effort to break that loop. It takes that intentional opposite action to start that new neural pathway, to start this new way of thinking. It's hard. It's really hard. And it gets easier over time. As you continue to reinforce this new neural pathway, you get to continue showing your brain new evidence. This is the belief that I'm choosing to reinforce right now. This is true. Eventually, your brain will start looking for evidence that that is true. And as you start to prune away the old root limiting belief, again, your brain starts to use its natural state of like wanting to default to a specific way of thinking. You just get to shift its focus. And now your confirmation bias and that loop starts to work in your favor. Your filter changes. You start to see and perceive things differently because your brain is now looking for different supporting facts. So when you start to show up and allow yourself to rest, allow yourself to take the time, there's other work that goes into it because you need to recognize that you are valuable without an output. And so there are multiple layers to it. It's not as like cut and dry as you just think a thought and it becomes true. You need to reinforce it over time. You are valuable when you rest. You are valuable, period. Your value is not attached to your output. Your worth is not attached to your output. You are still worthy when you rest. A dear friend of mine, one of her favorite go-to quotes, you are inherently worthy. You are. You are. You were born. You're here. You're worthy. You're worthy of rest. You're worthy of love. And that's another layer of shadow work, is you recognize that these are core beliefs that support a more joyful life. Confirmation bias. You believe these things, you see it everywhere. I did my research for today's episode. All the confirmation bias research came from Britannica, Simply Psychology. The belief formation and that neuroscience came from NeuroLaunch. The limiting beliefs and the neural architecture stuff came from MindLab. The origin of limiting beliefs came from One Breath Institute and Psychology Today. I did reference the Toyota Production System 5 Whys. That is not my original idea. I just apply it to limiting beliefs and not, like I said, manufacturing fuck-ups. And then Crum and Waldem in 2024 had a whole research thing posted about mindset reframing and behavioral rehearsal. This shit is real. You have the power to change your brain. You have the power to change the actual chemistry of your brain and the way that you think and respond to the world around you. And it can be difficult to do this kind of work on your own. Nobody can sit and force you to do this for yourself. But if you need somebody to talk to about it, or a little bit of guidance as you begin your work around reframing your thoughts and adjusting your mindset, reach out to me. You can DM me on either my podcast Instagram or my coaching Instagram. I can link those in the bio. I'm a mindset and wellness coach. I have some freebies posted on my page, but like I said, shoot me a DM. I'd be happy to talk more. We're going to pick up next week with my take on like the law of attraction and magnetism and shit like that. So stay tuned. Thank you for tuning in. Give me 5 stars. You should do it. Rate my podcast and follow so you can hear more about my shit so that we can evolve and level up together. We're all out here learning, but I will leave you with that. I hope you have a day as beautiful as you are. It has been real. Bye.